medieval well in the living room. You never know what you're going to get when you move into a new home. Sometimes you find something extremely creepy and super unexpected. Take the case of Colin Steer, who uncovered a medieval well and an old sword hidden underneath his living room floor after moving into an old Victorian home in the United Kingdom. It all started when Colin found a slight indentation in his floor and got a little curious. He decided to dig underneath his living room, at which point he discovered the massive well. His wife wanted him to board it up immediately since they had young kids running around their house. However, Colin thought there could be a pot of gold at the bottom, so he spent 3 days clearing the well with a bucket and a rope, trying to see what was on the base. Finally, he discovered an old sword. According to Colin, it appeared to be an old peasant's fighting weapon, made out of bits of metal all hammered together. What's really amazing is that there could be even more artifacts at the bottom of the well, but Colin stopped digging when he got about 17 feet or 5.1 meters down. He believes it is at least 15 feet or 4.5 meters deeper. While this isn't exactly terrifying, it is still pretty creepy knowing that there's an ancient well beneath your couch in the living room. What's even more mysterious is that after looking at old maps, it turned out that the area where his house was built was nothing but a woodland until 1895. It's unclear who could have built the well, why exactly the house was built over top of it, and what kind of other horrors could be hidden deeper within. Stranger in the attic. This next story is definitely creepy. In fact, it is every homeowner's worst nightmare. A man recently discovered a mysterious woman living inside of his attic. It all began when Davis Wahlman heard something strange coming from above his head and decided he needed to investigate. He had been house-sitting throughout the summer, and everything had gone smoothly until he started hearing the noises after returning home one weekend. He heard noises and noticed that a light in the upstairs room was on. He didn't think much of it and went to sleep, but things turned sour the next morning. That was when he knew he had someone above him. First, he thought it was his mom who had come home early and was tinkering in the attic. But when he went up there, the door was locked from the inside. He began knocking on the door, and that was when someone from the other side asked if his name was Jimmy. He didn't know anyone named Jimmy, and that was when he realized he had a mentally disturbed woman living in his attic. He quickly dialed 911 and then tried his best to keep the woman in the house until the police came. However, she ended up squeezing past him and running off into the woods before the police could show up. It turned out that the woman had been using a ladder from outside to crawl into his attic and had been living there. And the Jimmy person she was talking about had likely been her accomplice. Or maybe a ghost. A stranger's ashes. When Jason Johnson moved into his new home, he made a disturbing discovery. As he went through the boxes that had been left behind by the previous owner, he found a small urn that contained the ashes of a complete stranger. For some odd reason, Jason decided to open the urn, at which point he found a note with the dead person's name and the date of their cremation. He had no idea who the person was, and even after posting about his discovery on Facebook in hopes of finding the deceased woman's family or friends, he has not had any luck. In the meantime, Jason is going to hang on to the deceased stranger's ashes until, hopefully, someone comes forward to claim them. I mean, come on, what kind of person leaves a loved one's ashes abandoned in their old house? Did someone forget? And how do you even deal with such a situation? Do you know who the ashes belong to? And hey, by the way, thanks for checking out the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to click that subscribe button for more videos. Horrifying discovery. There's nothing worse than summer coming along and bugs start moving into your house to escape the heat. This is especially true for residents in Australia, who have to deal with venomous snakes and spiders on a regular basis. But while these creatures are scary, one unfortunate woman in Australia discovered a horrifying nest of creatures so menacing that she just about moved out. It happened when she went into her bathroom one day to find an odd formation that had appeared out of nowhere on her wall. She had no idea what it was. To try and get some answers, she posted the photos on social media and waited for the public's opinion. Finally, somebody confirmed her worst fears. wasps had moved into her house. Specifically, mud dauber wasps. They had created brown formations on the wall of her bathroom that were small nests for them to live in. According to an ecologist from the University of Sydney, the insects were relatively harmless, but the real horror was what was going on inside of the nest. These wasps spend most of their time catching spiders, paralyzing them, and then sealing them in nests of muddy clay. Then they lay their eggs inside of the nests, and when the wasp babies are born, they will eat the spiders until they chew all the way out of the nest as an adult wasp. This is obviously horrifying, and nobody wants it happening inside of their bathroom. And it's safe to say she speedily removed the nests from her house. Creepy note. This next one is even creepier than nests full of hungry baby wasps and dead spiders. A man named Paul Jones could not believe his eyes when he found a bizarre letter along with a Polaroid of a clown inside his house. This is arguably the creepiest thing anyone has ever found inside their home. Paul was in the middle of redecorating when he found the memento, which was likely left behind by the previous owners. Inside the letter was a note which read, "Dear Megan, I hate you a lot at the moment, but I love you." The note appeared to be written by a child, and along with the note was an old Polaroid of a very ugly man dressed in a super creepy clown costume. What makes this even more disturbing is that the previous owner allegedly had no children. What on earth? Who was the creepy clown in the photo? And who wrote the note? It remains a mystery, but if it were me, I probably would have quit decorating and moved out. Japanese House of Horrors. If you have a hard time with horror and gore, I highly suggest you skip this next story. By far, the creepiest thing that has ever been discovered in a person's house was in Japan in 2017, when the police discovered 9 human heads and 240 human bones inside of a man's tiny apartment. The man had been using Twitter to lure women to his home and kill them. The guy lived just 90 minutes from central Tokyo, and his house is now being dubbed by the media in Japan as the House of Horrors. All 9 murders took place over 3 months between August and October. And while a lot of people in the West might not have heard of this guy, he is becoming just as legendary as Jeffrey Dahmer. He killed women between the ages of 15 and 26, with only a single male victim who had gotten a little too close to discovering his crimes. This horrifying monster's name is Takahiro Shiraishi, and he's been given the death penalty for his heinous crimes. He is now being considered one of the worst serial killers in Japanese history, and considering he kept such grisly trophies inside of his tiny city apartment, he might also be one of the most sadistic killers that has ever existed. Good luck renting out his apartment. Creepy family photos. We've already seen some pretty creepy leftovers in people's houses. However, this next one really takes the cake. An urban explorer named Colin Smith discovered old black and white photographs while exploring a spooky abandoned mansion. On YouTube, this guy is known as the Bearded Explorer. While driving home from work one day, he spotted the driveway to a mansion and noticed that it was extremely overgrown and probably abandoned. He thought it would be a good idea to check it out. The property dates all the way back to the 1930s, with a lot of furniture and such still inside. While Colin found some other things in the house, like garbage and dirty mattresses, by far the creepiest was the collection of family photos found strewn all over the floor. It's doubtful that the photographs were meant to be scary, they were just taken a long time ago, way before people understood how to take appealing selfies. As such, the photos made the family look like they belong in a horror movie. And of course, Colin left the photographs exactly where he found them. Creepy Annabelle doll. Why do I feel like finding strange dolls in a secret room in your house is worse than some of the other things we've talked about today? Maybe dolls just creep some people out more than others? I can't imagine being the poor woman who recently uploaded a video online that shows the hidden room she discovered in a new house purchased by her family. While cleaning out one of the closets, she found a panel leading to the secret area where the previous owner had been stashing the creepiest dolls you have ever seen. This previous owner was allegedly an old woman, and she must have had the doll collection since she was just a child. The The room also had a strange gown hung up on a hook, along with a myriad of porcelain faces and dolls' clothing. As of yet, no ghosts have been reported in this woman's house, and hopefully the creepy dolls, which look like they belong in the next Annabelle movie, don't start turning up in unexpected places. Historic New York voodoo doll. Speaking of dolls, a horrifying discovery was recently made in a historic New York mansion in Queens, when auctioneers found a voodoo doll and a voodoo mask hidden inside the attic. It happened after the historic manor went up for sale after its owner passed away, after living in the house for 82 years. The house had originally belonged to the Steinway piano family up until the 1920s, and ever since it has been a popular tourist spot in New York. It has tons of history and a very colorful past, but nobody knows what on earth the voodoo dolls and the voodoo mask had been used for. They could have been relics from an earlier time, or then again, the guy who was living there could have been practicing some voodoo magic. I wouldn't mess with any voodoo. Unfortunately, we will probably never know what was going on in the historic Steinway mansion. Skull and Bones. If you've ever heard of the death metal band Cannibal Corpse, this next story is not gonna be surprising. This is a very creepy musical group that sings about some pretty disturbing stuff, so it's no surprise what a search warrant revealed. The guitarist for the band, Pat O'Brien, was holding at least 80 firearms and several human skulls inside of his house. The guitarist ended up being arrested and charged with assault and burglary, and according to the Tampa Bay Times, he was found with 50 shotguns, 10 semi-automatic rifles, and 20 handguns. But even though he had so many guns, this is the United States we're talking about. Out of all 80 firearms, only one was illegal. It was, of course, the sawed-off shotgun. All of the other guns had proper paperwork. But the creepiest thing found inside this guy's house were the skulls. They didn't appear to be taken from murder victims and were purely decorative. But still, who keeps human heads inside of their house as decorations? It's a very strange thing to do. And as for why the guitarist was arrested, it was because in December, he broke into a nearby house, pushed the female occupant onto the floor, then screamed at them that a rapture is coming. Of course, this guy is pretty insane and probably belongs behind bars. Thanks for watching. What's the most horrifying thing you've ever found in your home? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And come back soon for more videos.